Astronaut Steve Austin was nearly killed when his lifting body vehicle crashed. He was rebuilt, however, at the cost of $6 million and became a bionic agent of the government. At least that's the premise of the $6 Million Man. In reality, pilot Bruce Peterson walked away from that same crash, and that's the story we're looking at today on Vintage Space. The whole premise of the $6 Million Man TV series that aired in the 1970s is built around footage of this crash of a lifting body vehicle. Lifting bodies are uncommon vehicles that we don't see very often. They don't have elongated fuselages and wide wingspans for flight. Instead, they generate lift by virtue of their aerodynamic shape, although they do kind of look a little bit, to borrow a phrase from Milt Thompson, who flew them, like potatoes with wings. And they fly about as well. Fred Hayes of Apollo 13 also flew lifting bodies before joining NASA's astronaut corps, and he said that if flying a jet was like a 10 out of 10 on the maneuverability scale, flying a lifting body was about a 2 out of 10. Nevertheless, they were still vehicles NASA felt were worth investigating. And in 1967, Bruce Peterson survived a terrifying crash in the M2F2. Like the X-15 and so many other research aircraft before it, the M2F2 was dropped from underneath the wing of a B-52 bomber, at which point Peterson was charged with gliding it to a smooth runway landing at Edwards Air Force Base. But things got a little bit hairy when he was coming in for landing on this particular flight. The M2F2 had a known lateral instability problem, and during his descent, this problem came back for Peterson. The nose pitched sharply to the right, and Peterson used his rudder to try to cancel out the motion, but instead the M2F2 just started rolling. Peterson managed to right the roll, but then immediately saw what looked like a helicopter, and was a helicopter, blocking his path to the runway. He cleared it by about 1,000 feet, but the distraction was just a fraction of a second too long, and he hit the lake bed without his landing gear deployed. He bounced back up into the air and, trying to get a little bit more lift so he'd have more time to deploy that landing gear, fired the main engine. Peterson traveled just 80 feet down the runway when he hit again with his landing gear only partially deployed. The M2F2 skidded, flipped over, and rolled end over end 6 times, coming to a rest upside down with Peterson hanging from the straps in the cockpit. Now this is where the fictional Steve Austin was so destroyed that he had to be rebuilt and made into a cyborg. Peterson, on the other hand, walked away pretty unscathed. He had one broken bone in his right hand and had lost a fair bit of skin on his forehead, because at some point during the flipping and rolling, the canopy of the M2F2 had come clear off the vehicle and he dragged his face across the lake bed. That injury eventually cost him his eyelid, which in turn led to a staph infection that cost him the sight in one eye. But Peterson did live to fly another day, just 18 months later. And Peterson's survival from a crash that nearly killed fictional Steve Austin was due to an engineering decision. With its rear-mounted engine, the M2F2 was back-heavy, and that meant engineers had to put something for ballast in the nose of the vehicle so it would fly level. Rather than just simply add ballast, they decided to reinforce the area around the cockpit. It wasn't a decision done with pilot safety in mind, but it probably saved Bruce Peterson's life. Have you guys heard of lifting bodies? Do you have a favorite lifting body that you'd like to know more about? Because I love lifting bodies and will definitely be revisiting these weird vehicles. If you have questions, comments, or any favorite anecdotes about lifting bodies to share, leave them all in the comment section below. And for a little bit more on Peterson's crash, also check out the article linked in the About section. As always, don't forget to follow me on Twitter, and with new episodes going up every single Tuesday and Friday, subscribe right here so you never miss an episode.